Hi, how's it going? This is Ron Reich, and I'm very excited because today I'm going to be sharing with you one of my absolute favorite topics in the world, which is the topic of digital minimalism. I'm going to be sharing with you my journey when it comes to digital minimalism and why it's so important. So, let's get into it. Just a couple of fun updates, a couple disclaimers. I'm here in Palm Springs, California right now, and as you can see, my audio might not be A plus because I do not have my microphone because my microphone is in my suitcase and it is packed and ready to go because me and my family are going to be traveling to Houston, Texas later on today, where we're going to be spending about a month. And then we're going to be heading to Colombia, South America for 2 additional months. So we're going to be doing a little bit of road tripping, nomading, etc., etc. And we'll be back here in Palm Springs in September. So next time I record one of these videos, the next video you see of me, I will be in a different environment. So I'm excited to be sharing that journey with you. Speaking of journeys, I mentioned that I am really into this concept of digital minimalism, which really this is an idea that was really coined. The phrase was coined by Cal Newport, who you might be familiar with, who he wrote a book called Digital Minimalism, which I believe came out in 2019. In 2015, he wrote the excellent book Deep Work, which is all about how to basically work for productive periods of time. He is the guy who invented that phrase, although of course it was a thing that had been around for quite a while. But he had some great kind of nuances, and he really brought that idea to the mainstream, believe it or not. And then after that book came out, a lot of people asked, well, okay, so I get what to do. I need to be focused without distraction while I'm working. But what about when I'm not working and there's all of these distractions in the world? We're in like this plugged in society. So really, he came up with this idea about essentially you want to being a digital minimalist means you want to use essentially the minimum dose of technology that you need. Leverage technology to the best of your ability, but don't let it kind of like ruin your life. Don't basically let it bring you down. Let's say don't let the right. It's basically it's like leverage it so you're only getting the benefits of technology, but you do not lose. Um, you get the benefits, but you don't experience the drawbacks. There we go. And so what we'll find, what we found, what the researchers found, what might be obvious to you listening to this, is that there's just like serious drawbacks to extreme uses of technology. That's the whole thing. And really, you can pretty much get all the benefits of technology um, without really using a ton of it, which is why being a digital minimalist is the way to go for myself, many other people, and it's something that I would highly recommend you consider as well. So let's get into some of the reasons why this is so important. So here's the thing. I'll just talk about for myself anecdotally, but these things are true for other people, is that if you want to maximize your productivity, if you want to maximize your creative output, you need to be spending you need to be a digital minimalist, really. If you want to maximize your output, you need to not allow all of the distractions that come with technology to enter your field. Here's the thing. Practically speaking, just using the numbers are quite crazy when we just think about how much time people, independent of what it's kind of quote unquote doing to their brain, but if you think about how much time people are wasting on technology, it's huge numbers. We're talking specifically about really mostly algorithmic technology, things like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the social media apps. And yes, I am very aware that I am posting this video on YouTube and I want you to watch it on YouTube. So there is some irony there. It reminds me of the band 90s rock band Rage Against the Machine. The band signed to a major label, making millions of dollars, talking about why corporations are bad and whatnot. It is what it is, but hopefully you're watching this video, and I would encourage you to really be focused and attentive and not be distracted on all the other shiny objects here on YouTube. But anyways, the studies show that the average person spends about 2 hours per day scrolling social media, engaged in social media where they're not really being productive. They're not using it intentionally. And if you do the Brendan Bouchard, who you might know, I'm a big fan of, he does a good, this is one of his talking points, where he basically talks about if you just average that to 10 hours a day, 10 hours a week, times 4 weeks, that's 40 hours a week, right? 40 hours a month. That's a whole extra work week, essentially. And then of course, if you paint the pictures of how much time you'll get back by not spending that time, it's like crazy, man. It's like, if you keep playing out, you're getting like extra, you're multiplying the amount of just productive hours you're getting by not engaging in social media. At the same time, when it comes to productivity, there's essentially a cost of, there's a cost to engaging with really this kind of distraction kind of technology. It truly is like junk food for the brain. Like it's like a perfect analogy, essentially, is that when you go on social media, you get like that hit of dopamine, and then you kind of need to keep scrolling to get another hit of dopamine or whatnot. And so that itself is not very optimized. It's not very virtuous. But also, from a pure productivity standpoint, your brain needs to process all of that. So that's why you just like let's say you wake up in the morning and you, like many people do, if a person wakes up in the morning and the first thing to do is like go on social media, scroll on Instagram for, it doesn't really matter how long, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Let's say they do that, and then after their 5, 10, 15 minutes, they go to work. They start working on their most important project, like writing a book or creating some content or whatnot. So that's person A who does that. And then there's person B who wakes up, doesn't go on social media, and just immediately goes and does the thing. So independent of that extra 20 minutes that the person got who didn't go on the social media, the person who just went and did the thing, they're going to be more productive than person B is going to be more productive than person A, because person B didn't really that person B's mind is not processing the stuff that they just went through. The scientists call this attention residue. I'm getting confused now. Person B who didn't do that, person B has a clear mind. Person B is going to be more productive, more effective than person A. So he's basically going to be arguably twice as effective. Hopefully you're appreciating this small example. They're going to be literally twice as effective because A, they have an extra 15, 20 minutes, and B, their work product is going to be better, more focused, right? So from a pure productivity standpoint, we want to be spending the least amount of time possible engaging with technology. We can do some, which I'll get to, but from a pure productivity standpoint, this is huge. And then from a from a pure presence standpoint, from a pure connection standpoint, from a pure how would you say it, just like being an awesome human standpoint, it's way better to not to just have a clear mind, essentially, because this is going to allow you to better connect with other people. There's also studies that show, they call it the iPhone effect, that just by having phones out on the table when two people are connecting, it decreases the effectiveness of that connection, of that concentration. So yeah, you're just going to be more present. You're going to connect with other people better if your brain is not have the residue of the social media, etc., etc. And if your brain does not have that residue, and if you're just like not obviously connected, right? If you don't have your phone with you while you're talking to someone, you're going to have a better conversation, if that makes sense. And if you can do this for longer periods of time, you just become a more connected, awesome person. And this, of course, is critical when it comes to the oxytocin economy and really being a magnetic leader. Magnetic leaders, we need to show up with full presence as much as possible. And if we're always tied to our phones, it's not going to be as good. So there's the productivity aspect of it, there's the connection aspect, and then there's also I guess there's kind of a spiritual aspect as well as kind of a creative aspect, which are also critical. So when it comes to the spiritual aspect, and this is just personal my own personal philosophy, my own personal belief. I don't really have any, can't say I have any strong data to back this up. But what I'll say is that when your mind is clear, to me, that essentially gives me a greater connection to source energy. It gives me a greater connection to God, if that makes sense. Like it's just the way I think about it is like it's like the mind is clear, and then just like the goodness can just flow through it, if that makes sense. That's my personal belief, which again, that's just anecdotal. That's just what I believe. So you can obviously not believe that, of course. Your beliefs are yours. But one thing that is actually quite inarguable is when it comes to creativity, is the power of basically the power of disconnection, the power of solitude. This is quite inarguable, and there's I could talk for hours about examples of great ideas, game-changing ideas that came up in solitude while someone was out on a walk, or of course the classic example of having these great ideas in the shower. There are many like reasons for that. It's very easily explained because when you're in a shower, you're disconnected. You're also in this very very relaxed state, and that's when those great ideas can come up. So you get all of these benefits by being a digital minimalist. You get all of these benefits. You're more productive, you're more connected, you're more creative. Everything is awesome. So I highly recommend you become a digital minimalist. I'll be talking about food in another video, but really, the two of the biggest things you can do to exponentially increase your life, which are not going to be easy to do, one of them is become a digital minimalist. Detox yourself from overuse really of technology, social media, checking email too much, watching too much Netflix, watching too much streaming stuff. Detox yourself from that, and then of course detox yourself from eating bad food, which basically is processed food. It's really a perfect analogy. Processed food and essentially algorithmic social media, they're two peas in a pod. If you just were to eliminate those two, your life would just totally be way more awesome. I absolutely promise you that. So how do you do that? So I want to give you a couple of my rules. So I'm a huge fan of a woman by the name of Susan Pierce Thompson, who I'm a positively a sugar addict. She wrote a great book called Bright Line Eating. Bright Line Eating, the whole thing is that she has these 4 rules that essentially she says you have to stick to these bright lines. You have to treat yourself. If you're a sugar addict, you have to treat yourself as you're like an alcoholic. That you just have to you will not cross these bright lines. For your information, those bright lines are no sugar, no flour, no snacking, and monitoring the quantities of each of your meals. So 3 meals a day, no snacks. So those are her 4 bright lines. They work really, really effectively. I'm a huge fan of them. And what I've personally done is I've adapted essentially those bright lines, kind of an analogous framework that I've created, which I call bright line input management. Bright line input management. So it's quite analogous to it's not a perfect A to A analogy, but pretty analogous to what Susan does. So my rules essentially are two of them are like the sugar and flour versions. Rule number 1 is essentially no basically no online entertainment. Essentially, no online entertainment. Let's say that, and really that means things like YouTube. It's essentially YouTube plus social media apps. So no online entertainment, unless of course it's for business essentially. But general rule is no online entertainment. No using your phone or using the computer for entertainment purposes. So that's essentially what that rule is. And then I have another rule, which is essentially no articles. Like, do not read articles on the internet, because reading articles can get myself into kind of like a dopamine type loop, because it's like it's not intentional, if that makes sense. So no online entertainment, no articles. Those are my first 2 rules. Then the rule number 3 is all inputs need to be intentional. Intentional inputs only. This is kind of like the analogous to the quantities that Susan talks about. Intentional inputs only. So what that means is, so for example, I can, if I want to do something that's algorithmic, like listen, or that can be algorithmic, like listen to music, I'm not going to put on like a Spotify mix of a band. I'm going to say I'm going to listen to this curated playlist that I've already created, or I'm going to listen to this album. Also, for example, if I'm going to watch, I'm not saying never watch a movie. If I'm going to watch a movie, it's like, okay, I'm going to watch. Here's the movie. Here's what I'm going to watch. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to watch this movie, or I'm going to watch this documentary series, and after 30 minutes or after it's over, then I'm going to go on to the next thing. So basically, being intentional with your inputs. Related to this, of course, like I actually every once in a while I need to go on social media, because I do stuff on social media. So, and that's okay if it's intentional. So, for example, in my coaching, I'll connect with a lot of people on Facebook, for example, like through Facebook Messenger, and so if my rule is to never go on Facebook, that would not be ideal for this season of my business. So what I'll do is, okay, what I'll say, I'll create a window. I was like, okay, I'm going to go on Facebook, but it's only for this specific amount of time, and I'm going to be connecting with these specific people. So I'm not just going there just to have fun. So basically, that's the intentionality of what the input is, and then the 4th rule is intentional windows of engaging with technology, which really means being intentional about when you're going to check in, like either on social media, on messages, like checking email and things like that. So my current rule is checking email just one time per day. And I want to get back to just checking all messages just one time per day. Lately, I've been checking them more than one time per day. This is my own thing that I need to work on a little bit. When I'm in seasons where I'm talking to a lot of people, then sometimes I will just check in a little more often. Um, but those are, regardless of whether I'm doing it perfectly, those are the rules. So no online entertainment, no articles, intentional inputs only, and intentional windows of when you're going to engage in technology. And one thing I will share with you, I know I'll talk more about these and some of my specific practices in future videos, but one total game changer for me, and I've been doing this for a long time. I really got into the extreme digital minimalism stuff back in 2019, and I actually went through I went through a phase where I actually tried to get rid of my cell phone. It was too difficult because I actually purchased like I installed a landline. I I actually was like I'm never gonna use my phone, and I actually would I got one of those old school GPS things, but that didn't work out so well. So I still have the phone. Um, Another one of my rules is not quite a bright line. Not it's not the same framework as bright line input management. But one thing is like I keep my phone off 99% of the time, and it's always away from me unless I'm like consciously using it. So I would say just keep your phone off and keep it away from you. That is another game changing thing to do. Anyways, the big game changing thing that I want to share with you is the Freedom app. This is not, I think it's freedom.to is the website. This is not an advertisement. I've used quite a few different um, apps for what do they call blocker type apps. Freedom is the best one. Full stop, 100%. The thing that's awesome about Freedom is that you can, um, I I mean, you can install on the phone, and you can also, of course, install on the desktop, and you can actually you can create different block lists. So I'll have a specific block list that I'll do. Like I have what I my main block list that I use is called laser mode. So when I'm in laser mode, this is when I'm working. This is where I can't get into any of the distraction websites. I also can't get into any of the AI apps. um, and I pretty much can only basically use like Google Docs, and I basically have Google. So if I need to research something, which can happen, I can still do it. Um, but that works really really well, and it also gives you the option to block desktop apps. So that's why when I'm in laser mode, even if I want to like check on my messages, open WhatsApp or whatnot, I can't do it. And the thing that's cool is you just program the sessions. So what I actually did this last weekend was actually it was kind of difficult. Um, is I actually programmed like the entire weekend. Like I was not going to be able to go on any of my kryptonite sites. And the thing they have too, they have I can't remember how you say it, but they make it so you can't undo. It used to be that if I would be in a session. I think it's called locked mode. Yeah, that's what it is. Um, it's like I'd be in a session. And it's like, oh, I hear the devil. I hear the devil, and I want to check on YouTube. I can just stop the session and go check on YouTube. And so and it would say, oh, you sure you don't want to? If you sure don't want to, you sure you can't keep going? And I'll be, yeah, I'm sure. So, but now there's locked mode, which makes it so you cannot undo it. Like literally, like it's really like there's literally nothing you could do. So maybe later on I'll do a tutorial that kind of explains kind of how I use the Freedom app. But I'm telling you, the Freedom app is a game changer. If you use it, you're gonna be friggin' unstoppable. All right, this has been a longer video. I hear the baby crying in the background, so we're gonna. Well, she's actually a toddler. I hear the toddler crying in the background, so we're gonna wrap it up now. But that's a little bit about digital minimalism. I hope you are inspired to give it a whirl. We'll be talking more about this in future videos, and give you some of my rules and my favorite digital minimalism app. So there you go. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.